Welcome to Democracy Explained, a podcast by Apathy is Boring. In this series, we explore the pillars that hold up our democracy: participation, information, pluralism, rights, and elections. I'm Sam Roosh, Executive Director at Apathy is Boring, and your host of Democracy Explained.
I'm Sid, one of the co-hosts of Democracy Explained.
And I'm Lee, also a co-host here on Democracy Explained.
Throughout this season, we'll hear some hot takes.
Try that with your partner. Try that in a relationship with your family and just say, oh, you're actually misinformed about this. That's not what happened. You're wrong. I'm right. And move on with your life.
Everything you do is inherently political, so why not just develop a healthy political ethos about yourself?
I just keep thinking back to when the internet came online and people were like, oh, this will make things more efficient and we'll be able to have more leisure time. And no, it's just made things crazier. You're just feeding the beast constantly.
And we'll ask out loud the questions we're all thinking. How did you get to the point of being friends with this person and being able to see their humanity through having really vastly different views on things that I imagine are really personal for you? In today's episode, we ask, what the heck is democracy anyway? ASB was kind of my first foray into getting connected to what the term democracy even means. I applied to join this organization as a disengaged youth at the time, which is great that they've snagged me now and I'm in all the vibes. But yeah, I was asked to sort of comment on democracy personally on my end when I joined the org, which was my first exercise in thinking about what it meant to me as a term. Not gonna lie, I Googled it because I felt like I knew but was unconfident in my answer. And yeah, at its base core, just the idea that there's a power that the people in a specific jurisdiction hold, usually a country, but that also trickles down into a further level, that they hold the decision-making power over how society is run and all the ways that affect their quality of life.
I think it's sort of interesting to me because I've always been nonpartisan. I've always been like, I haven't come into this like I was, picking a side or like trying to win like, some sort of political battle. I've always sort of come at this work from the place of like, okay, how can we help get more people involved? And I think more now that I'm actually glad that I sort of always played in that space. I'm happy to be part of, a movement in Canada as part of our work to try and build that like capacity amongst like everyday citizens who just are hoping to have more of an impact on the things that matter to them. The way that I see it working with young people is like, how do I make sure that they're already part of that system? So how do we get them to understand and feel like they have a role to play? There's research that shows that people who feel that they can have an impact in their institutions and their governments are like 3 times more likely to have trust in them. And I think for me, that's what this like journey of creating this podcast is. It's like trying to make those institutions visible.
Really what we're trying to do here with this podcast is just put people on the same page, because I guarantee you a lot of folks who might be out there listening right now, maybe some of you are thinking on questions that I currently still have as a co-host, like what actually are all those foundational institutions that underpin democracy? What are the roles that they have? How do I access them? What does democracy in practice actually look like beyond just going and casting my vote in the federal election that happens every 4 years, if I even do that? The idea here to get folks on the same page about a lot of the terminology that probably a lot of us missed in our high school civics education. I can put my hand up there that I definitely did. This is the resource that I feel like we can give young folks today to get everyone on the same page.
I imagine a thriving democracy is one in which everyday people have access to the same resources as everyone else, where people do feel like they can have an influence or at least know how to do it if they wanted to, is a really valuable thing. And I think some people find that a little bit scary, but I find it really exciting that, people would feel like, no, the government actually does represent me and works for me.
I just think with media nowadays, there's so much more of an opportunity for us to make that a reality for all these different types of folks across the spectrum in Canada who haven't had the best access.
Yeah, and I think what you're getting at is sort of the root of that that first pillar, which is participation. Like, how do people get involved? And I think that that goes all the way into and all the way up to government. And there's a lot of interplay between those different levels. You mentioned it before, but I think it's really important. It's like, if you turn on the tap and clean water that you can drink comes out, there's a lot of people that were involved in getting that water through your tap.
The more spaces that we can make in our society that uphold nonpartisanship, especially as we're becoming so divided, especially out here in the West, it's of such critical importance.
We're having a constant dialogue of millions of people, which is crazy when you think about it. Millions of people trying to translate, how do we move forward? What are our values and our priorities? And like some of that is set out, right? Like we're going to have a whole episode dedicated to rights and like the courts and laws and how all of that comes into play. Like we do have these broad frameworks and documents that we can rely on to sort of say, we care. And in so many ways, I think looking at things like our information ecosystem, we're almost flattening the richness of that. And it's becoming harder for us to have conversations with people who might see things from a different point of view.
What are you hoping that folks out there who are listening to this podcast, what's something that you're hoping that they will take away from it, that they'll walk away from if they follow the whole series through?
I hope that they see that there are so many different roles and so many different people that play a part in our democracy. Like, I hope they understand that there are so many different pieces and aspects and things to think about, things that they can participate in, or at least know that there are, good, smart people thinking about and participating. And if it's not their cup of tea, but like, I'll always advocate for that. And I hope that people leave with, a better understanding of why that matters and, come up with their own ideas, to your point, and build on the work that people generations before us have built.
So, throughout this podcast series, we'll dive into each of these pillars with stories, guests, and conversations that show how democracy actually works, and how young people like us are already shaping it.
We'll hear from guests who are experts in their field.
I am the executive director of New Majority, which is an organization that focuses on increasing youth voter turnout.
I direct this organization called the Media Ecosystem Observatory, which is sort of Canada's premier institution that tries to understand our information ecosystem and what's happening kind of in the digital sphere.
I am a director at Mass LBP. The LBP stands for Led by People, and that's the work that I do.
I'm the managing editor of The Hub.
I currently serve as the Secretary General for the Global Center for Pluralism.
So that's it, folks. Democracy. We're here to explain it.